Alrighty, guys. So we're on to the supply and demand course now. So um, you can pause here and just take a look at what we're going to be going over because it's too much. I don't want to read it all. But let's get into the supply and demand basics. So why we use supply and demand is because basically that's what the big institutions do. Okay, so the big institutions and firms are the main ones who kind of drive the market because they're buying so many shares or contracts that they provide tons of liquidity in the market and huge orders. That's basically it. It's very low risk and high reward setups. So when price becomes unbalanced, the price will reverse. So when supply is greater than demand, the price will decline, and when demand is greater than supply, the price will rise. So let's just look at a example from today. So let me drag this over. Okay. So this is today, May 20th. I mean, so our supply and demand zones, which we'll talk about how to draw later on. The green zones are demand zone. The red zones are supply zone. Okay. So in this green zone, there is tons of passive buying orders. Okay, so there's a ton of orders just sitting here, all like lined up at different prices, right? Tons of orders sitting there lined up at different prices, and they are waiting to get filled. And they're huge orders, like very, very big institutional orders most of the time. Okay, and you see when we come down to this demand zone, price is falling, and then we hit this demand zone, and although there's still tons of selling pressure, as you can see from this volume, there's institutional orders lined up all around here, right? And they start to get filled. These passive buy orders start to get filled. Okay, and then that basically ends up driving the price to the upside. Okay, and now when the price drops to this demand zone, right, that means there's passive orders getting filled. So then the next time we come to this zone, which is right here, there is less passive buy orders because a lot of these passive buy orders got filled over here. These big institutions got filled over here, right? And now there's not as many orders here. We kind of bounce a little bit right here, and then we fall through the demand zone, which that is because there's just tons of sellers in the market right now, and there's not as many passive buying orders ready at this demand zone. Okay, and now let's look at this zone. So we come into this zone, kind of form a little a falling wedge, which is bullish. Okay, and you see we don't bounce at this demand zone right away, but these institutions are slowly filling their orders in this demand zone here. Okay, so they're slowly filling their buy orders, and they're leveraging in their position. So the farther we get into a demand zone, they just keep averaging and leveraging in their position, and then we break to the upside, right? And then that is when they'd be taking the profits, right? This would have been a fantastic entry on the break of this to the upside for like 10, 15 points. But yeah, there's basically a ton of passive sell orders here. Okay, and let's see if I can find like a new supply zone. So here we go. This is a 15-minute supply zone, which we'll show later. Right there. Okay, but basically, if the ES comes back into this zone, there's going to be a ton of passive sell orders here. Okay, and since there's a ton of passive sell orders here, there's a good chance that we end up dropping back down, because once we hit this area, people will be thinking, the retail traders will be thinking, oh, we're breaking a new high of day, we're breaking out of this pennant, we're feeling bullish, and then they are not realizing that we're in a supply zone where there's huge institutional passive sell orders waiting to get filled to go short, right? And then they get filled, and then we have a good hard rejection to the downside. Yeah, so that is basically the basics of the supply and demand, why we use them. So just kind of remember, we use them because the big institutions have big passive orders waiting in those zones to get filled. And a lot of times they are leveraging in their positions because retail traders are providing them liquidity, because they are buying into a high of day break or a breakout while the big institutions are selling, or vice versa. So on to the next one.